Hello there, and welcome to the Special Ed Leaders podcast. I am super excited to introduce our guest today, Dayna Sanders. She earned her undergraduate degree from the University of Washington, and then she went to Washington State University for her graduate degree in speech and hearing sciences. And she's been an SLP for 12 years. She spent 9 of those years working in the schools. And then she ended up switching gears and she was doing these simultaneously, but now she is the full-time CEO, founder, co-founder of Next Level Speech Therapy. And they are doing such amazing work for school districts, which is why I invited her here today. But Dayna, I just gave like a super brief little bio, but I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about your story, especially around like next level speech therapy, like what led you to start that and kind of what does it look like today?
Yeah, it is a fascinating story. One with many turns and routes and all of that. It was before the pandemic. And so teletherapy was just like this word out there. And we do more than just teletherapy, but that's how it started. And I was 34 weeks pregnant with my second child in my school district office, and somebody had mentioned teletherapy. And I remember going home and telling my husband, I could do something on the side, and have some private clients and do it via teletherapy. And he was like, Dayna, you should hire that out. And so, people see me as the face of Next Level, but really it's Mike behind the scenes that's kind of the brains of the business, because he was the one that kind of held my hand through it and was like, we can do this, you can do this. And so Next Level, honestly, was going to be set up as a private practice teletherapy clinic. And then I had a contact in a school district that was like, I need you for a maternity leave. And I have no one, so can we try this teletherapy thing? And that's how we transitioned to schools. And it just grew from there. Special ed directors in the area, they were like, you're local, we need you. And then the pandemic hit. And then teletherapy, since we were doing it, we kind of became this, in our area, hey, can you help us get set up? Can you help our SLPs get set up? And so it just, was not a thought of, we want this grand, huge business. I don't want to work in the schools ever again. It just was one thing after another. And it was, the biggest, kind of blessing in a way to be able to build something with your significant other, have your kids see what you're building, and help SLPs get good quality jobs being cared for by an SLP team of a company that's owned and operated by SLPs, and then districts being you know what you're talking about, you're an SLP too, and there's not a corporation behind you. We didn't have investor money, so it was this kind of slow start, and you learn along the way and you build something that your customers want. And so it's just what has been super exciting. I never thought, and I don't know if was you too, with your business, I never thought when I graduated school, that this is what I was going to be doing. But then now, Asha was in Seattle, and from your introduction, I am a born and raised Washingtonian, and I went to the 2 major schools in Washington that are actually rivals. So I am a Cougar. 'Cause one's a Husky and one's a Cougar. Talking with professors now and stuff, they're like, how can we work with you so that you can help us develop things for our students and SLPAs, and we need more providers out there. What are you seeing? And so it's this amazing thing all around.
It's really a win-win situation, or win-win-win, because you get to have a big impact on the field and you're providing quality jobs for SLPs with really great support. And I've talked to a lot of the SLPs who work for you guys, and everyone has the same feedback. It just sounds like an amazing place to work. And then you're also providing a really great service to school districts and solving a big pain point there.
It's a huge pain point right now. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I always feel bad talking about it too because I'm an SLP that left the school and am doing something different. But like, I don't know where SLPs are going. Like, I mean, the pandemic was a really big turning point for our field, like positives and negatives, I guess. It's hard because grad schools only take so many SLPs or like
Right.
potential SLPs. And then, like, not everybody goes into schools, right? Like, there's clinics, there's medical. So, if you think about, like, I think there are 3 major programs in Washington State, Western, Washington State University, and the University of Washington, and, like, if you just think, okay, just for round numbers, there's 30 graduates each year, like, that's 90 in Washington State alone.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
and
not
we
all.
know that the amount of school districts that we have here, you could place everybody
Mhm.
in a school position, but that's not the reality of it. So it's super tough for schools right now.
Yeah. So I actually went to the University of Washington for grad
No!
school.
When
Um,
did you graduate? Did we go at the same time?
I graduated in 2014.
Okay, so you were after me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can relate, like, I'm picturing the whole landscape and just imagining like 90 new SLPs for all of the school districts. And yeah, so that is a huge component in terms of like why districts are struggling to hire. And I've talked to a lot of special ed administrators who like that seems to be the biggest pain point of like we can't hire people. And it was definitely a pain point when I was working in the schools in Washington, and I think it's only gotten worse. Yeah.
Um, no, I remember when I graduated, it was like, "Please take me, please take me." Like, it was very competitive to kind of get in the schools, and, like, now it's like, "Do you have a degree?" Like, "Are you willing to work in our district?" Like, yeah. "Are you competent? You have like, you can do this? Okay, you're hired." I mean, that's super simplified version, like, they do vet people, but, like, it's just so different. I don't know if it's like retirement, like people needing to be at home, like childcare or trying something different. But yeah, there's definitely a big shortage and it's only going to get worse, I think,
Mhm.
because of the boomer population is retiring and yeah, all the numbers. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's rough.
Yeah, and that makes it really hard because like the job of a special ed director is really, really stressful if you don't have SLPs to cover the workload because then the SLPs are overworked and no one's happy.
I
There's
know.
a
I
lot of
think like
issues.
and for us coming from the schools, like you see like the stress, like the day in, the day out of special ed directors. And because you're in meetings with them, like you're in IEP meetings, eval meetings, like parent meetings, like, it is a job that is pretty it could be, like, 24/7. Like, it is putting fires out left and right. Like, staffing is, like, the one thing, like, it's like, "Okay, if I can come in and support you and take that off your plate and have a partnership with you where you know that if, like, there's an issue that has come up with one of our caseloads or whatever, like, it's Dana or your team, like, here's the situation. And it's like, okay, I got you. You don't have to explain it to me because I understand what's happening under the surface because we need to do this, 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 and this. So you handle what you need to handle. We've got you. And I think that's the difference between like next level, like in some other companies, is like you don't have to explain the whole situation. If you
Yeah.
say, we have a parent concern, we need an eval done. Okay. Like, I can understand all the things that are happening under the surface for that. So, we gotcha.
Yeah, and you'll know what needs to be addressed to like make sure that everyone is happy and that it's like well done instead of like creating issues down the line where like oh this evaluation wasn't actually handled appropriately and now the parents are frustrated or they're threatening litigation or all of the potential kind of worst case scenarios. Yeah.
Yeah,
You've
and
got
it's like, I'm
competence.
not gonna come back with you, like, with, 10 questions that, like, you need to answer so that I can understand the
Yes.
situation more.
Yeah.
It's like, "Okay, let's your job is stressful enough, like, let's try to take as much stress of the staffing piece off your plate as possible."
Yeah. And it can be because I've seen positions open for like years and years where it's just hard to find people. I don't know why. Well, I guess it must be like the grad school rate, like the number of SLPs in the market and just I don't know, it's just really challenging. But the fact that you can help with that too, of like you
Yeah.
have SLPs ready to go to fill in.
Yeah, we have one of them, like a wonderful school district in Arizona, and it's super rural. And it's just like there's not, it's hard to get people there because of the geography of the location. And so, yeah, we can go in and support them. And we've had a great partnership with them for a while now. So,
That reminds me too, like, are you able to work with any district in any state or
yeah,
so you're all up
technically we
oh,
can be, we set up Next Level as a professional corporation so that we can, I mean, there's all these fun little nuances to all of that and how you set
yes.
up a company and stuff. Some states don't recognize certain like LLCs from out of state and
Wow.
all of that. So, but yes, we are able to work in every single state. We have a lot on the West Coast just because like people like sped directors are more like, oh, you're local here.
Mhm.
But I'm one of those people, I'm like, I will fly to you to, like, help get
Mhm.
things set up, like, it's like, no matter where you are, like, we are gonna make sure that, like, you feel like we are right there and are partnering with you. So, yeah, we have contracts all the way from, like, Florida to Alaska.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
and those contracts we've had for year over year. Like, and I would say, like, what we're doing at Next Level, it's like districts want to continue working with us. So we've had our retention of employees and clients is pretty high.
Yeah. And what do you think contributes most to that?
The
Because you mentioned
partnership.
some of the things, but I'm curious, like, what sets you all apart?
I think it's like we don't have investor money behind us.
Mhm.
It is Mike and I's money that, like, started this, and, like, the business income, like, the profit is going back into the business to make it better and grow it and all of that, and so we're not responding to people who are not within the business, and so the pain points that directors feel or employees feel, that is what, like, we are putting the money towards. It's not like, okay, here's this shiny new object that we want you to go for and we want you to make more revenue. Like, obviously, we have to, like, it's a business where we have to have some money coming in to be able to continue doing what we're doing and getting exceptional SLPs and having partnerships with school districts and being able to, like, market towards them so that they know we're here. Like, we don't have the huge amount of money to have this huge marketing campaign, and so it's kind of like more of a grassroots approach. So it's slower, but it's much, in my opinion, much more meaningful, and I think that's the difference is, and they feel that difference when they work with us.
Yeah. And I'm sure that like when you're doing your annual goal planning and everything, it's focused on how can we provide like a better service to our SLPs and our school districts versus if you have a team of investors you're answering to, it's like, oh, well, you didn't hit that profit margin. What are you going to do to quickly get more districts? So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that having that kind I personally really like that approach. I'm a little biased though. Um, I love that. And then, because you are doing so much work in terms of fostering the relationship with the SLPs and the districts. Can you give us like a little bit of insight in terms of what that looks like and what you're prioritizing in this season for providing that ethics service for the SLPs that you hire, but then the districts too?
Yeah, and so for us, like, we have been doing a lot of work because we don't just do, like, remote teletherapy work, it's, like, in person and hybrid. So, like, SLPAs in person and with, like, remote supervision or district supervision, whatever, like, the district needs. And so that's been a huge focus, and, like, how do we make that better for districts because there's nuances like SLPs are coming out of undergrad with theory and they want like a lot of them, want to go into the field as an SLPA to see what they think of it before going on to grad school or like I mean, it's simple too. Like, I need to make some money. Like, I just spent a lot of money in undergrad and I need to work before I go to grad school. Like, so there's, or, and some people are like, I'm just not interested in going to grad school. Like, my sister in law personally, like, she was like, I'm happy being an SLPA. That's kind of what we've spent some time in fostering that growth. And how do we work and mold SLPAs to be really like solid boots on the ground clinician support for SLPs, district SLPs, and like our SLPs that are supervising them.
I knew that you provided like SLPs and SLPAs, but you also support, like, if a district already has SLPAs, you support that too?
We could, yeah, you could support that too, like with
Oh, cool.
the supervision piece. Like sometimes they just need the supervision, like they have an SLPA. Like let's say, like it's a super rural community, they have an SLPA, they need the supervision. Like we can
Yeah.
come in and provide that supervision.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And that gives districts some different hiring options. Then they don't have to outsource everything. They can just get like yeah,
yeah,
make the most of what they already have.
yeah.
That's really cool. And then
Thanks.
they have like that because they have all of your brains and the whole team's brains in terms of like resolving those issues that come up and providing
Yeah,
really great support.
and, like,
Yeah.
when we were talking earlier, you and I, like, it's that, like, a lot of your like, the people on your team are SLPs too. Like, they're
Mhm.
you're like, you hire SLPs to answer the questions, like, that's what
Mhm.
we do too. Like, our operations team, like, consists mostly of SLPs that are doing the jobs. Like, accounting, HR, and tech are not SLPs right now, but everybody else is. And so we're putting people in those positions that have the clinical knowledge plus like a business knowledge or a drive to like have the business knowledge. And so like when SPED directors reach out to us, it's they also are talking to people like recruiter, salesperson, like they're SLPs. So they know as well. And I think that's the difference too. And like they can see that difference when they're talking to us as a company.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And then, so I know that because I've heard some stories from school districts who hire
Right.
companies and it doesn't go so well. And it sounds like you guys have a really great track record with the districts that you work with. And so, because I've chatted with your team a little bit as we were like preparing for this episode, but they were chatting about how important transparency is. And they think that's part of what sets things apart. So, like, if a school district admin is listening, hopefully they'll reach out and they need support. Hopefully they'll just reach out to you. But what are some tips that you would give to a district administrator in kind of making the most of a contract and making sure that they're setting up a good one and kind of to maintain that?
Yeah, transparency is huge for us. So like our one of our core values is authenticity and being authentic. And like I think people get that from me like even as like the CEO of the company, like I am myself like with who I talk to, like everybody will know like yep, Dana's favorite color is pink with sparkles like and she loves Hanson, like the Mbop Hanson. Like I mean, I from the top, like, down in the company and I don't like to think of it as, like, a top-down type of thing, like, we're a pretty flat organization, but, like, that is, like, a huge, like, transparency, like, with, like, as much as you can, like, with finances and, like, who you are as a company. I think that permeates into, like, the contracts and stuff. And so, the transparency is super important, and so because we're SLPs talking with the district, it's like, okay, what do you need? Like, if the district tells us, okay, we have a high needs caseload with a lot of AAC users, like, we're going to be like, okay, we're not going to put a like super brand new person in that position. And if we have to, like, we're going to provide the mentorship and support. Like, this is what you're going to get to be like transparent about like your caseload, your numbers. And that helps because then it's like we can find the best fit for you as an SLP, whether it's SLPA in person with remote supervision or or hey, this caseload really needs an in-person SLP, or hey, we can go the remote route because of X, Y, and Z. And so being as transparent as possible about like what the needs are of the caseload, super helpful.
Yeah, and so some of the things would be like what the actual caseload numbers are. Like, what are some other pieces of information that you would need to like get the full picture to make sure that you're able to set up like the best
Oh,
possible
yeah,
program?
like caseload numbers, that's huge. The type of students on the caseload, like, are, what their categories are, or even like a speech only caseload, like, that is not necessarily like an easier case, like, quote unquote, easier caseload, because with that, it comes with a lot of case management. Like, you're the person responsible for those IEPs and those evals and setting everything up. And so knowing that kind of information too is extremely important when putting together like kind of like the quote or like the conversation with the district. The types of students on the caseload, how many schools would somebody be serving? Like, are you expecting them to be at 5 different schools? Because
Mhm.
or is it one school? Because that comes with, like, if it's multiple schools, then that SLP needs to understand multiple teams, and not every single school within a district is running MTSS things the same, or, like, your meetings are on different days.
Yeah. Yeah, and then is it a problem if there are like IEPs out of compliance or makeup minutes or
Yes.
anything like that?
Yes. Like, out of compliance IEPs, makeup minutes, like, yeah, that I mean, because that's not gonna show up necessarily on, like, caseload numbers. Like, it becomes the
Mm.
caseload versus the workload
Mhm.
piece. So the workload might be super high and, like, you might not be able to get to a lot of other things, and so then that becomes a conversation because then it impacts, like, how many hours per week is reasonable. So if a district wants, like, a part-time SLP and, like, we're having the conversation, okay, it's, like, 30 students during the week, so we are wanting to contract you for this many hours. And then we set up all of the stuff. And then come to find out that there are, 50 out of compliant IEPs and these many kids need to be evaluated and like some makeup minutes. Well, then that becomes, oh, well, that's kind of becomes an issue, and we might need to put another full-time person in to get you guys up to speed and compliance, because then it's just that hamster wheel of if we're working on this stuff, then like caseload's not getting taken care of, and students aren't getting the services that they might be getting if we can get this covered as well.
Yeah, so best practice is to disclose those needs up front. And
Yes.
then you can, and it might just be a temporary thing of like, okay, let's just put someone there for X amount of time, get this cleaned up, and then we can just continue business as usual.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. And then are there any other questions that you think are really important for a school district administrator to ask an agency?
I think some of the important ones are like, how do you handle issues that come up? Like, nothing's ever perfect, right? Like, I would love to live in a perfect world where everything, is hunky dory, green. My husband used to say, like, Dana, you like to live in the clouds. Like, yes, I like to be in a happy place, but like, sometimes that is not always the case. And things come up and life happens to our employees and school districts and all of that. And it's like, how do you handle those situations that come up? How do you handle, like, if there's a team dynamic thing that's happening with the district? The other thing is like district meetings. Like, would you like our SLPs to be a part of those district meetings? Like, all of those things, like, like to have SLPs kind of fit seamlessly into like the school district that they're being placed at. And so anything that like we can develop on our end to help with that too. So questions about, would your SLPs be willing to come to our monthly SLP meeting? Those are important.
Yeah, that's great. I think we went through all the questions that I had. Was there anything else that you're wanting to share? Or if there's nothing else, like where can district administrators learn more about Next Level and what you guys offer?
I think I could probably talk for hours about all of our, like, the things that we're trying to develop. And I think the biggest thing is like, we are here to partner with you. Like, there is no ask that like we can't have a conversation about. And so I think the biggest thing is like, what are your rates? Right. And it's like, it's a hard one to answer because across the US, it's very different. Each state's very different. How I answer that is we work with you as a district. Like, we understand that there's budgets. Like, we will have that conversation with you. Like, we're not coming in with like a menu and here's our menu and you need to pick from our menu. Like, yes, we have our services, but it's a conversation. And so don't want districts like big or small to feel like they can't have a discussion with us, like, because we're willing to partner with districts about all of that. And then the other thing too is like, we're here for in person, teletherapy, hybrid, all of those services. And we're just speech. Like, so I don't feel like I have knowledge of OT or PT or psych to be able to go to a district and try to like talk about those services. So we are speech only so that we can do one thing and one thing really, really well. So if they want to get a hold of us, they can go to our website, nextlevelspeech.com. My email, dana.s@nextlevelspeech.com.
Okay. Yeah. And we will have show notes for this episode. So I'll link to the website and I'll include your email since you shared it too. And then, yeah, we'll just have like a quick recap of what we talked about and then all of the links. Dayna, thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing your expertise and perspective. And thanks to district admins who are listening in. I
Yes.
hope
Thank
this was
you.
helpful. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.